Hey everyone, welcome back to Drama और हम हैं Aisha from Lahore, Pakistan and Mariam from Mumbai, India. Today's episode is a very special one. हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं Tan Man Neelo Neel की as a whole, all 11 episodes. Mariam, I'm still in shock after watching yesterday, so I'll let you start and share your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me. So I guess I think the first thing I want to start with is the same duo which did Zarb Patto Ka Ban, right? The same director-writer
Writer-director.
duo.
Yeah.
And you can see the similarities between the two shows in terms of the treatment of the actors and like just the way it is set up. Very simply done, very simple story. I mean, I think for me, the story is the hero in the show. I don't think there is a hero because even the main lead, like Rumi, no, Rabia,
Rabia.
and Sonu are not the real hero heroine. It's the story, right? And there are like what, four tracks, if I can think. So first is obviously the turf wars and that political wars, and then the lynching, the mob lynching bit connected to that. Then second one was the molestation, male molestation or rape, which I'm not sure which
Hmm.
one it was. I guess the third was the family dynamics, like generational family dynamics, and then I guess then the fourth is or you could say that revenge, love, revenge, and whatever. So I think for me, the when I started watching it for the first three episodes, because I started watching it when already eight were out, so I didn't have to wait for the next. I guess if I had to wait for the next, I may have lost interest after the first two. I wasn't that engaged because I wasn't sure what I was watching. But I think after the fourth, the story just picked up and it was like so intriguing. The different interconnections between the father and Sonu's mother, and the way it kind of builds up, right? Because first you start thinking the father has an extramarital affair, then it changes completely. Then you think, oh, he's just sad because of his love. Then you come to know something. So I think they progressed that story really well. I think for me that was my favorite story. The family, the Rabia, her mother, the father, and that whole storyline for me was my favorite storyline. Um, and obviously, we've all seen all, I mean, whoever's watching this has seen the entire show. And in the end, it felt like it's based on some real story. Is it based on
Yeah,
a real
yeah,
life incident?
yeah.
I,
So it's
Obviously, I
let
don't
me
have that
just
context.
let me just give you some context here. So when the show came out initially, they said that this is
Mm,
about mob lynching primarily. Okay?
mm,
So initial few episodes, I was trying to kind of keep an eye out कि क्या mob
mm,
lynching ये वो सारा कुछ. But
mm,
I think they did such a good job of getting us interested in the other stories that
mm,
somewhere I forgot. Okay, they had mentioned that this is primarily about the lynching culture. So now that is something that has plagued Pakistan, at least in the last decade, काफी
mm,
ज्यादा, decade or
mm,
so, which is के जो हमारे पाकिस्तान में blasphemy laws हैं,
mm,
they basically not even laws. I won't even go to the laws because this doesn't even get to the courts. But एक culture बन गया हुआ है कि especially somebody can be accused of doing something blasphemous, and
okay.
then before that thing ever gets to court, the facts are established, anything happens, the mob attacks and that person is no more. ठीक है, और फिर बाद में पता चलता है कि it was either
Uh-huh.
property dispute or for example किसी
Mm-hmm.
के साथ ईगो का झगड़ा था, या in this
Mm-hmm.
instance जैसे there was a love angle and he felt
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um
Yeah, yeah.
sideline because of that. हाँ, तो basically ये और जो बाकी एंड में सारा जो montage आया था stories का,
Yeah.
they were all real incidents that had
Mm.
happened. Not these characters were not real,
But
and this
different.
story was not true.
Yeah,
But mob lynching as a concept um, is something that has been plaguing us for the last decade or so.
yeah.
उससे पहले भी होता होगा, but it has really picked up in the last. तो एक जो इंसिडेंट था स्पेसिफिकली जो वो लोग मेंशन भी करते हैं ड्यूरिंग द शो, was the one where a Sri Lankan guy had come who was working in a Pakistani factory. Okay,
हाँ
for some multinational, he was there,
हाँ
and I think there was some work problem with him,
हाँ हाँ हाँ
and
हाँ
they accused him of saying something blasphemous or
हाँ हाँ हाँ
and then the mob lynched him and killed
हम्म
him, and
हम्म
that was the story that they showed. जो
in
एक
the
headline में
newspaper.
श्रीलंका से चला था बेचारा, हमारे लोगों ने उसे जिंदा जला डाला।
in the
वो
newspaper
न्यूज़पेपर में
also.
हाँ 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 हाँ
Newspaper में भी end में उसकी photo भी दिखाई थी, that then the
हाँ
other
हाँ
photo they showed of somebody mourning. Um,
yeah, and then
that
two
was also,
brothers or friends or something as well. They
हाँ,
showed like those photographs.
exactly. Then
Yeah,
those
yeah,
were
yeah.
there. Then they think,
Understood.
and there has been social
Mm.
conversation around how to stop it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think is drama ke through, you feel the impact. Ke,
Yeah, and you know the thing, what a beautiful part of the story was the love story between Sonu and Rabia was a backdrop. It was not that the mob lynching was the backdrop. The whole story was around the two of them. So you almost felt like the love story is the backdrop, and all the other characters are connected to them that way. But in fact,
हाँ,
the reality was like reverse, right? Which is
हाँ,
so beautiful. And of course, in the end, I was just like shocked. To be honest, I was just speechless because
हाँ,
obviously the last episode went on a high, right? They were
हाँ,
doing well, they were happy, they showed them together. She was planning her event, and it was all year. And suddenly it just
yeah,
like literally shocks you to the core because you're
हाँ,
almost like, did I see this right? Did I see it wrong? Like, what just
हाँ,
happened? Because I had to rewind it like two, three times to see okay, what actually happened. And then obviously, it was just so heartbreaking. I just didn't know. Like, somewhere I felt like it left me wanting for more. Like, they should,
okay,
I felt like I needed closure. Maybe they should have
हाँ.
shown the two of them dead or something. I don't
So
know. I just
they,
felt
yeah,
like I felt
so,
a bit.
हाँ, so two things there. I think one thing was that this whole sequence literally happened in the last 5 or 6 minutes of the episode.
Yeah,
Till which point everything is going perfectly well.
yes,
ठीक है? उसके अलावा, in the end, they actually didn't show us the bodies of the main
yeah,
protagonists. They
yeah,
showed us the dupatta
yeah,
for Rabi. They showed that
yeah.
the jacket उड़ के गिरती है for
Huh,
Sonu, and then they
right.
showed the other characters उस तरह से, ठीक है? So for me, it was um I was. Do you remember that? Have you seen the movie Dharkan? Janvi Kapoor and Ishan Khattar.
Dhadak.
Dhadak, sorry, not Dharkan, Dhadak,
Hmm,
Dhadak, Dhadak.
hmm.
So it was
In
similar
the
like
end.
that last sequence, I remember watching it in the cinema, and that scene happened. And
Mm,
there is no music suddenly, there is
hmm,
nothing, right? And
hmm.
it's just stillness inside you, stillness on the
Yeah.
screen, and you're just coming to terms with the ending. So
Hmm,
I
hmm,
like
hmm.
the fact that they didn't go into, too much explanation. I think of the last sequence, or they didn't make it
Yeah.
too long.
Hmm.
And also initially मुझे ये थोड़ा सा like समझ नहीं आ रहा था. I thought I wasn't expecting कि वो सबको मार देंगे, ठीक है? So my expectation was कि कुछ होगा
The
उल्टा
father
पुल्टा.
will die, I thought. And
Exactly.
then, somewhere they'll escape, and then there'll be like a whole
हाँ,
realization that, in the end, he at least helped them live their life or something. Like some happy
exactly.
ending.
कि कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा जरूर होगा. And
Yeah.
I thought even the father dying would have been a sad thing, but that would
Yeah.
have very neatly closed the other endings, because he can no
Mm,
longer be at the wedding. It's like redemption for him for what he did, and
correct.
everybody else can,
Correct.
can still move on.
Right.
But in
Right.
some ways, I think that doing it this way, where they killed Sonu, Rabi, Moon, even the Taya, the
Taya.
father,
Yeah.
everybody, like that they kill everybody, had more impact. I will not forget this ending in a long, long time. And
I
it's
just wish, I mean, I maybe to make the impact, yes, I think it made
हाँ
sense. And I like the fact that they killed the Taya because it was a realization probably that, the perpetrator of the crime can also have an impact on him or herself.
बताए इन बदबख्तों को कि जो आग तुम सड़क पे जलाओगे वो एक ना एक दिन तुम्हारे घर तक जरूर आएगी.
I wish for larger audiences who are not so obviously this is made in Pakistan for Pakistani audiences, but because there are international audience also who watch a lot of Pakistan. Be nice to have an end with like some like facts, how in English or Hindi movies when they make
हम्म
it about public interest, like how many people have died, what is actually,
हम्म
something so we
हम्म
get because I was just like, okay, what just happened? Why did they do
हाँ
this? Obviously, with no, then obviously the scenes I understood it's based on real life, but it would have been nice to if they added that, you have just wrapped it all up very neatly, and this is
usually
dedicated to all the people who've lost their lives,
exactly
and like as a caution reminder to the broader
हाँ
public of why this. But I mean, the show was so beautiful. Like
हाँ
before even this, right? All the I think the last 5 episodes, not one episode, I felt like, array, except I guess the turf war. I was not that so invested in that story between the two politicians,
हम्म
but I felt like every character got like was there for a reason. Like that's what I
हम्म
like about good direction and good writing, where there's no extra characters just for the sake of it. Everyone had a role to play. Everyone was moving the story forward in some way or the other. I mean, I have such like some of the scenes I just fell in love with, but I mean, I think for me the favorite story track was that Rabi mother father that story along with that Sonu's mother story. Yeah, but I
हम्म
just felt it was so well directed, acted,
हम्म
um, and also like very well written. Like all the
हाँ
dialogues, all the interactions. No, like now look at take this example. Obviously, Sehar Khan is very young, right? She's a young girl also. She's also immature, right? But her immaturity doesn't have the same loudness as the other day when we were discussing in Meme Se Mohabbat, where she's also immature, but
yeah
the way she's acted, I still find her a little loud, but theek you can still get away with it because the other part of the stories are quite mellow.
हम्म
So I think everyone was really, really, the story was written really well, I think.
हाँ
And the same
absolutely
writer of Farar and the same writer of Zard Patto Ka Ban. Like, I just feel like, okay, maybe Farar is just written really well, but
I
badly
think
edited or
Farrar,
directed.
हाँ, I think Farrar, and we'll come to that later, but I think that's
Hmm.
more an execution thing for me
Yeah, I
right
think it's
now.
also let's talk about it in the
हाँ,
separate section. But
I
yeah,
think
I'm
हाँ,
it's amazing that he can write
how he
these
can
two
write such
stories.
different stories.
Yeah, I
Uh,
really love him as a writer, I must say.
I think there are two things with Tan Man Neelo Neel that really stood out for me. By the way, I don't know if you caught it or not, but Tan Man Neelo Neel it had two versions, right? So
Yeah,
when they're
the,
dancing,
the
Sonu
exactly.
Vagera, it's an
It was so
upbeat version,
amazing. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then when the scene starts, when they start running, तो उसी का एक version आता
Slow
है, and
version, huh?
हाँ, and basically the lyrics of that, what they're saying is that कि हमारे तन मन नीलो नील basically means कि our bodies and our hearts are bruised,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and और वो बीच में जो सारे lyrics हैं वो ये कह रहे हैं कि ये हम self inflict कर रहे हैं,
Hmm.
ये जो
Hmm. Hmm.
bruises हैं ये हम चोटें
Hmm.
अपने आप को खुद लगा रहे हैं. So I thought like that was brilliantly done.
Hmm.
um Secondly, I felt like the format of the show as well
Hmm.
helped because it was 11 episodes. It was crisp. There was no need to add extra characters or extra
Hmm.
scenes.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
exactly what it needed to be. और
Yeah.
उसमें उन्होंने पूरी जो भी हमें and it wasn't just that one message, right? There
Oh,
was so
so
much more.
many. So many. Yeah.
Similar to Zat Patton Ka Ban, where
Yeah.
so many messages, but आपको at no point आपको किसी भी एपिसोड में लगता है कि ये प्रीच कर रहे हैं कि अब ये अच्छा, अब लेक्चर शुरू हो गया है, अब ये मुझे,
हम्म
it's because
हम्म
you genuinely feel that these emotions or these thoughts are coming from these characters. So
या
for me,
या
yeah, so for
या
me, I agree in the sense के मेरा जो favorite track था वो वही family dynamic था of the father, the mother and Rabi.
या
um और उसमें भी इतनी चीजें थी, right? The way, for example, the lady who played the mother, Nadia Afghan. Oh,
oh my God, like
like,
what a beautiful, I mean, I know we were supposed to do it later, but she's my favorite character in the show. I think if you have to say who's the, like, I would say she stood out in the show throughout. And then her openness and joy when she's with her daughter, her scenes with her husband in the beginning where she's trying to get, like, have this like
हाँ,
very emotional connection, and then later I think she's done such a fantastic job. Like that woman, like she stole my heart. She
yeah,
stole my heart
and
in the show.
and that character never makes you think कि usually when you see जैसे शुरू के कुछ episodes में she wasn't
Mm,
really very vocal and all that, you see them and you start getting a bit irritated कि, oh, why is this person not speaking up, why is this person not doing this or that. But she had her own way of speaking up also. But since that point where she found out what had happened, that scene, like, and I think like her, like my fondness for her character was so much that when the last scene also happened, my first thought was her. my
yeah,
my my
yeah.
first thought went to
When the
her.
husband is when the husband is standing there, I'm like, oh, she'll be happy that her husband was there and protecting the
Yeah.
kids. I mean, yeah, I completely agree. I
Huh.
mean, I didn't feel that she didn't speak when she had to, because you see her interactions with her. We call Jethani. I don't know what you call the
Similar,
buddy.
Jitani as
Uh-huh.
well, huh?
She's very respectful, but very like boundary, right?
Boundaries,
In a very
huh?
nice way, she would talk to her, never rude. Like I just loved that character. Like she was like a stellar character for me. She spoke up when
Yeah.
she had to. She didn't speak when she didn't have to. Like I just loved that character. Like
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I
know,
think
she's my favorite.
so much of that has to, she is an amazing actress, but so much of that
Mm.
has to also do with the writing and the direction,
Yeah,
because
of
the
course.
same couple, the same husband and wife, were Sehar Khan's parents. So the same, three people,
Mm.
were a family of three in another drama, Jaffa, which has ended recently,
Mm. I haven't
and
seen it.
and the last few episodes of that drama were frustrating, to say the least,
Okay.
because you're
Okay.
like, you're thinking and you're looking at these actors and you're like, this doesn't make any
Uh,
sense, right? So so
mhm.
so, so just the same people, but given a better script and
And
better
direction. I think
direction, huh?
direction.
um
Yeah.
Plus, the other thing they also addressed in this show, which just to give some context, was the fact that Sonu, by profession, right, is a dancer. Okay?
Is that a bad
Now,
thing?
in
I didn't
Pakistan,
realize it
yeah,
was such a bad
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So for international audiences, I think like, and somebody like you, for example, you come from India, where
Mm.
dancing or like even being a professional dancer is not a bad thing at all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
In Pakistan, it is for a man to be a dancer.
Mm.
It's जो words use किए जाते हैं to describe
Mm.
are very harsh. ठीक है? And now, to show, never did they raise eyebrows, the family, around his profession. ठीक है? There was a concern whether he will be able to provide a good living, whether
Mm.
he'll be able to make some money out, a decent living for her and for Rabi. But usually, जो शुरू में थोड़ा सा दिखाया था, जब वो molestation वाला part था,
Mm.
कि when Moon goes to the, even when he goes to the police station and he
Yeah,
says
he
कि मेरे
tells
साथ
that
ये
तुम
हुआ है.
ऐसे काम करोगे तो ऐसे ही होगा, right?
Exactly,
हाँ.
exactly.
जिस धंधे में है ना उसमें यार ये सब कुछ चलता है, कोई बड़ा मसला नहीं। मेरा मशवरा है मत पड़ो पर्चे के चक्कर में, पर्चे होंगे तो चर्चे होंगे।
It's kind of like, like a man who dances is probably looked at as one of the worst things they a man could do as a career,
Okay,
you
that's
know.
very interesting because there's
So
such a big like music industry and like stuff. So I just imagine that art was respected in general.
uh, so singing is fine. Acting
Okay,
is now fine. Acting used to not be okay for women. Now is okay.
okay.
Like, there is no connotation now that if you are a woman who's in the entertainment industry, then you must belong, and you must come from a certain kind of background or whatever. Now that has
Hmm.
gone.
Hmm.
But with dancers, very much so. We have like गिनती
Interesting.
के तीन या दो या तीन classical dancers who are women. And I'd like audiences to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever had a man who's been, a famous dancer.
So when
Anyone.
choreography, right? Choreography and all, that sort of
So even
thing.
the choreographers, right? Like they are respected
Uh,
within the industry, but
uh,
outside of it, they're called all sorts of things, unfortunately. So ऐसे नहीं होगा कि
okay,
जैसे,
yeah.
if you go out and say, I'm a man and hi, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
choreographer, like people will call you Mirasi, they will call you, all kinds of things.
What's a
Uh,
mirasi? But
so a Mirasi in Urdu, Mirasi basically means somebody who has something to do with music. But Mirasi as a
okay,
term is used to, it's kind of like a catch-all term for everybody from the entertainment industry.
okay,
So it's kind of like
okay,
an insult now. To call
okay.
somebody a Mirasi means basically ke, uh, like
नाचने
it's
गाने
just
वाले
हाँ
types.
नाचने गाने वाले types exactly.
Hmm.
So there is no respect
Understood.
or honor associated with this. So which is
Okay,
why
understood.
they kind of took that head on as well, but they did it in
Hmm.
such a way where nobody except for that moon wala sequence mein,
Hmm.
nobody really has an issue with him being a नाचने वाला. Even the Taya, right? और
Hmm.
ये चीजें दिखाई दी है कि the father could not marry Farah,
Because
Sonu's
she was a
mother,
dancer.
because
Yeah,
she was a singer dancer.
yeah, yeah,
So like they've broken that generational thing with this family, where they
yeah,
were like, okay, that's fine if he's a dancer, but just make sure that he has enough of an income to be able
yeah.
to
Right,
sustain
right.
the household.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, there were so many topics addressed so
ha,
beautifully, like so beautifully. Like if we now, I mean, we discuss the stories. For me, my favorite character I told you was the mother. I mean, I loved the actor who played the father. His acting was brilliant. Like I think the one thing which is very difficult to do, I mean, at least to watch, is someone cry. Right?
yeah,
Not everyone cries well. Some people
yeah,
cry really badly, and it's very difficult to cry as an actor, I would imagine. But I mean, that scene where he is leaves the mother's house, Sonu's mother's house, and that anguish and frustration because he's trying to switch on his scooter. Obviously, at that time, you think it's because he's in love with her, and then later you realize because he's already done a lot of damage to
it's
her.
guilt
But
exactly.
that helplessness where he just breaks down and just starts crying because he just cannot do anything about the situation is so brilliant. Like that guy, like that the actors, I've never seen him before on TV, or maybe I've seen him,
Hmm.
but he looks different.
Yeah,
Done such a good job. And even the small things, right? Like the way we discuss in Karzejan, the small things that they pay attention to. That tiffin ka dabba, कि वो bike उसकी headlight टूटी है. Like you can see struggling. This is a
हाँ
struggling household, right? You can see the struggle.
हाँ
ऐसे नहीं कि सब अच्छे कपड़े पहन के घूम रहे हैं, लेकिन actual में
हाँ
पैसे नहीं है, right? वो
हाँ
मुझे बहुत weird लगता है when they show people with who are poor, but they live in
हाँ
like very lavish. Even their house
exactly.
looks
हाँ
like it needs repair and
yeah
maintenance.
yeah
So I thought that was very, very, like everything was done like with detail, right? But to the
yeah
point, which was very, I mean, execution wise, like
हाँ
production company and director or whoever you need to give
yeah
kudos to. Very
yeah.
well done.
I think absolutely one of the other characters who I am very fond of was the Taya. Again, you would
Huh.
expect the head of the family, to be, more traditional, to be louder, to, like really put his
Yeah,
foot
yeah,
down.
yeah,
But
yeah,
at no point does he do that. He's so gentle. He's the same person
yeah,
who was in
yeah. And
Bansal's
Zalpat,
father.
I really
So
liked him,
obviously
the
I'm so
father as
fond of
well.
him from there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
And in
yeah,
Farad, he's doing such a different character. But
yeah.
I'm so fond of that actor and that character as well. Um, One character that um, I know that Kami survived, okay,
Mm-hmm,
after
mm-hmm,
having done everything, and that scene where he comes in to step in to try and save the father was for me,
mm-hmm.
um, for me, that was like really important, because even somebody who starts a mob cannot then stop it,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly, right. The
But for
perpetrator
them,
becomes a
huh,
victim.
exactly. So first I thought that they were going to kill him as well, but
Mm,
then they showed that he's alive and he's
mm,
there now to pick the bodies, and he's going to be answerable. What he did was seen by everybody, and
right.
he has actually set off like a chain of reactions, right? Now we
Mm,
don't know what happens right after this. We
mm,
again, like we don't know anything आगे क्या होता है, क्या reaction
mm,
होता है. But in a way, like now it's on him to explain to the family. He
mm.
um
But I think like they have to do it that way, right?
huh,
Because you need someone who will change the events later. Like, for example, if
yeah,
you take you said, right, the father didn't get to marry her because she was a singer dancer, but he does not want to do that for his daughter because he knows he's gone through it, right?
huh,
And
huh,
his brother and he both know what he went through. So you need a survivor to have been the victim to
huh,
change the future,
huh.
right? So how generations change. Because
So I feel like death would have been too easy, an arc, or too
yeah,
easy a
exactly. It's
redemption
not
for
enough.
him.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not enough for him to die in that moment. He has to
Hmm.
live with it, and he has to, see what he can um
Hmm.
do to change things. This was my second Sehar Khan show that I was watching. First one
Okay.
was the one that I mentioned before, Jaffa. Um,
Okay.
I thought that she really, as you were saying when we were talking about Meem Se Mohabbat, she really took on the
Hmm.
role and she played it in the right tone,
Hmm.
right? It could
Hmm.
have gone very,
Hmm.
it could have
Off.
gone in another
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
But she maintained that energy throughout. I
Yeah.
also really liked the guy who played the guys, both the guys who are actually Sonu and Moon.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Moon का मैंने और कोई काम नहीं देखा हुआ, but I felt like the
Hmm.
way he showed the pain in the first few episodes after the molestation, after the rape had happened,
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
was wonderfully done, because it is something
Hmm.
that is not spoken about.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Main molestation again is, you almost don't have in culturally in Pakistan.
Hmm.
And this is obviously not like if it happens to, Nana Kwasta, somebody but if you hear
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
as well, right? It doesn't have the same impact,
Yeah.
right? Secondly, there is this and a trigger warning here. Secondly, it's almost like, okay, how can a man be forced into something like this? Because,
Right.
a man has power and cannot be,
Hmm. It's
forced.
almost you don't want to be by being the victim. You don't want to be seen as a less than man because then
Exactly.
why else?
Exactly. Because it's a question mark on the masculinity, right? On your
Hmm.
masculinity if this has happened to you. And thirdly, there is shame, not
Mm,
even
of
from the
course,
perpetrator, but
of course.
there is shame
Yeah, yeah.
as the victim, which is much
Mm,
more so if the victim is a female, culturally at least.
mm,
I had never seen this being shown on screens before, and I think to show
mm,
something like this um, on a prime time slot, on a
mm.
weekend, prime time slot, is very brave. So
And it's
the
important.
production house, it's important. It
It's
is so
important.
important, but how many people would shy away from, putting it, because the idea would be, कि, even the mass audience,
Hmm.
right, will find it difficult to digest. And so when you show it in the first two, three episodes, people will switch
Yeah,
off and they will look
yeah.
elsewhere for entertainment. Right? Nobody's really looking for such a heavy, hard hitting story on a Sunday evening.
But that was the beauty of this show. It was done in such a tasteful manner and it was
Exactly.
not overpowering. That thing happens,
Exactly.
but it doesn't take over the entire show, right? There are still
Exactly.
different storylines. And it doesn't happen in a crude, loud manner. Everything in the show is very tastefully done, right? It's done in a very in fact I felt like they didn't show it enough in the sense that in the beginning I didn't feel I didn't feel as bad for him because it wasn't spoken about in a way that you understand what happened, what
Hmm.
actually happened, right? He goes to complain and all. Obviously, you have to tip, I guess, because it's Pakistani television prime time, you have to tiptoe around it. You can't be so obvious. And maybe people who need to get the message got it. For me, it was like almost felt like they didn't make us feel his pain enough. This was
Okay.
a very big incident in his life.
Ha.
And of course, the conversation was there around it where the mother, but I just felt like there wasn't much, I didn't feel that much for him because it was done very quickly, almost,
Hmm.
almost done very
Yeah.
quickly. But I get why they did that, in the
Exactly. And
usual.
so much is said, but so much is also left to be read between the lines.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
empower the audiences to read between to read that bit, that information that is not so obvious, and to
yeah.
think a little bit, to digest a little bit. And also I think, just coming back to, I thought, the guy who plays Sonu.
Hmm.
So I incidentally I'm watching another show with him,
Okay,
called Ishq Junoon, in which he is
okay,
a urban brat who is accused of who actually attacks somebody, tries to molest
okay.
her and kill her, and is
Huh.
now has now kind of gotten away with it because he's like
Okay.
very spoiled and all
So
that. He's
negative shaded
negative
character.
but very groomed, and like
Yeah, yeah.
uska attire, uska sara kuch is
Ha
so
ha ha ha
different.
ha. Ha ha
And the
ha.
way now that he has done Sonu, and
Hmm.
it's so weird that I watch both those shows the same week, right? Episodes.
Okay.
And at no point do I ever feel did I ever feel that this is Sonu who's also Shehroz, or that is Shehroz
Right,
who's also
right,
Sonu.
right.
Like, he has
Yeah.
such conviction that I have only love for Sonu, and I have
And only hate.
only disdain for Shehroz.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so again, I think it's a brave, it's a brave script to pick for the actors as well, right?
yeah.
Because there's always that danger that the audience will turn around and say, okay, no, not necessary to show us,
Hmm,
stop being like,
hmm,
stop telling us what we should be thinking.
yeah.
Only have good things to say. And I
Yeah,
think we need more mini series like these.
yeah,
um
I know. Why don't they make more like 11, like what was that,
yeah,
Manjogi? Amazing.
I
11
haven't seen
episodes, 12.
Manjogi.
Manjogi, no, what was it? Manjogi,
It was
right? With
Manjogi. It was
Bilal Abbas.
Manjogi. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I have to
You
watch
have
that.
to, what a beautiful, I mean, there were parts where you could say, okay, they could have done better, but what a beautiful
Hmm.
show and amazing progression. You don't need more episodes. The whole story is unfolded. Really, really well done. And I think you can still tell a very good story in less time. And this is
Yeah.
a evidence of that. You don't need to stretch it
Yeah.
for 25 episodes, even though
Yeah.
we have 25 episodes for us is also short, but you know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
say it in shorter time period as well. But yeah, I mean, I love the show. I mean, you know what? One of my other favorite scenes was when the parents go to the park and they're sitting on the bench, and oh my God, that scene is so beautiful. The hesitation.
कोई आ रहा है
Makes you like it instantly makes you like the characters as well, right? Like, it instantly
Yeah,
has you invested. Halanke, on the face of it, like, it's not really a love story that, most people would be like, oh, that's a love story I want to see on TV.
yeah.
Um, which, by the way, is one of like my dream storylines for a Shah Rukh Khan film, that he should come as a like a mature couple with somebody. But anyway, that's off topic.
I don't know how we are
Um,
back to Shah Rukh Khan.
but basically,
Huh.
I thought like there were so many of these instances where it was, where that scene plus, do you have any other scenes that you feel like were highlights
I think
for
the
you?
I guess the other one which was really which I was personally touched was when she goes to tell her about uh, that her husband killed her husband,
Yeah,
and then she goes
yeah,
in the room and she tries to hug her.
yeah.
That scene was also very beautiful. It was such an amazing scene,
Uh,
which
I
you
think
don't
that
see
episode,
often.
you don't see that often, especially because they've been set up as competitors, right? That she's the
Yeah.
ex-love and she's the current wife. Um, and I feel like in that episode there were two scenes. There was that one scene where, rather, there were two back-to-back episodes. One where the
Mm.
husband tells her and starts
Yeah.
crying and breaks down, and her first reaction is,
मैंने तो वैसे ही कह दिया था बेवकूफ औरत हूँ मैं आपको तो अल्लाह ने चार की इजाजत दी है आपने कोई गुनाह नहीं किया
like she
Yeah. She
sees
tried to
him,
comfort him.
somebody who's so stoic, break down like that, and she's trying to comfort him. But the moment she finds out, something switches inside of her, right?
Yeah.
This, because at the end of the day, it was all based, her love for her husband. She loved him from afar, and it was all based on, on what she didn't know about this man. That,
Mm.
he keeps things to himself. I don't know what burdens him, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when she finds out, even the way she then reacts with him, she's not disrespectful. She doesn't ever shout at him, but she gives him enough to know that, this is it.
Mm.
This is where my
Mm.
line was. And then
Mm.
I didn't know what she would do with that information, right?
Mm.
Like, it
Mm.
wasn't the most obvious thing that she would go to Farah and she would tell her
Yeah.
this information. And very unconventional. I felt like
I
that
just
turn of
love. I
events
Yeah.
was
I
very
think so much,
unconventional.
so many things here which were like less, because I mean, I don't know how what I would have done if I was the wife.
Yeah.
But the I think the I think for trigger for her was like she just felt like all her time and energy she had invested in the past, how many ever years, 20 years of marriage, were for naught, because he
Yeah.
was never the man she thought he was, right? So
Yeah.
something just switches off in her. She's like, I don't know who you are, and I can't
Yeah.
associate with you, right? Which is very brave to do as a woman
Yeah.
who is dependent on a man, right?
Exactly.
Because she does not have her own livelihood. She has not, like normally you would see what, oh now mera kya hoga, bacche ka kya hoga, I'm not going to tell
Huh.
anyone, I'm just going to live with this. But I don't know, something in me just connected to her because it was something that I don't know if I could do, as
Yeah.
a woman. So
It
it's
takes a
very
lot,
brave.
huh?
It's very brave. So I just
Yeah.
loved that she was brave, and didn't blame circumstances or her life situation in her
Yeah.
decision.
When the bhabhi asks her, the Jethani asks her, कि,
Hmm.
क्या हुआ, तुम बात नहीं कर रही थी, she tries to get a bit more.
जो अपना टिफिन खुद ही लेकर जा रहा था को ऐसी हमारी थोड़ी सी नाराजगी चल रही है किस बात पे छोड़े ना भाभी मियाँ बीवी की बात है बताते शर्म आती
She doesn't let it
Yeah,
on to anybody except the three of
anybody.
them.
Yeah.
When Rabi asks her, why are you moving into my room? She
Hmm.
again, has such a nice answer for that also.
Hmm.
It's, you have to, like, I respected her more for that.
I'm telling you, she was my favorite character. I
Yeah.
mean, because maybe of the writing, the way she acted it as well, the same character someone else could have overdone at any point in time, any point in time.
Yeah.
That she acted so well, like the hesitation with her husband first, and the braveness in the
Yeah.
conversation later, and it was just amazing. And that openness. She becomes very young with her
Yeah.
daughter.
With the daughter, she's
More
like, oh,
amazing.
comment aaya YouTube pe, hi Rabi,
She's
this,
very
that.
young, like
Or
with her
that scene where she's
daughter.
getting her to devour her body and, all that. Like, oh, she's so playful.
Yeah,
It's a different
exactly.
side of her completely.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think beautiful show overall.
I loved
I
it.
mean, I
I
couldn't have,
loved it.
even if I think back, there's nothing that I would change. There's no character who I would change. There's no
Yeah.
pacing that I would change. And the ending as well. I mean, as upset as I was all of yesterday, um,
No, I mean, yeah, how much the fact that we're so upset just says a lot.
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
for the show, the fact that you're, yeah, for me, it was very difficult to accept the end, but I think that says so much for the show because I felt like I needed more. I was left wanting for more, which was a
Yeah.
very good feeling.
I think the
Yeah.
only thing I would like to say, to audiences especially, is that this show actually did not get that much views during its
Mm,
lifetime. Um,
mm,
so जब ऐसा कोई show आता है, तो it's also our responsibility to watch it and to give it that time.
mm,
Because otherwise people will not have the incentive to make more shows. We complain a lot about the bad shows, the Saas Bahu, the love triangles and all of those things.
mm,
But
mm, mm.
at the end of the day, as audiences, हम पे भी responsibility आती है कि when something good comes up, like to talk about it, to celebrate
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
so that more people are incentivized to do more good work.
I mean, well done to the entire team. An amazing show, and at least from you have two more, at least one more fan of that director writer duo
Yeah,
than
no, I am
before.
sold as well.
So,
I was sold on that
uh,
Patton Ka Band, but this just blew me away. This one.
yeah.
Says a little bit about the writer and the director as well, right? To be able
Mm,
to translate something like this on the screen also shows a bit of what they what
yeah.
what they are like people, what their
Mm.
thought processes as well.
What they're, yeah,
Because
exactly. I mean, you see sensibilities, right, of a person,
exactly,
and they
exactly.
are thinking as a person.
On that note, I guess we've shared a lot today about Tan Man Neelo Neel. We'd like to ask you about your favorite scenes in from the show. Any moments that really stuck with you. Do share them with us in the comments below.
Yeah, thank you so
Um,
much for watching, and please share your comments on how you like the show.
and keep also watching and supporting drama or hum. We recently started it, but we already have seen some very lovely comments from you guys. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who takes out the time to watch. And keep watching.
Yeah, thank
Bye.
you. Have a lovely day.
Bye.